What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Journey into Comics. It's Journey into Comics 299. As always, I am your host, Nate. Today, joining me is the most all-star lineup of all-star lineups, as we have the OG of JIC himself. Welcome back to the show once again, co-founder of the Journey into Comics Network, Game Addicts Podcast host, Brando. How are you, my friend?
Doing pretty good, my friend. It's good to be here today, back on the old JIC podcast. Just sitting back and chilling with some good old iced tea in my mug and, kicking it with my homies. Going to be talking about some cool comic news, talking about some Kraven's Last Hunt. I jumped onto that and read that all this morning to get caught up to you guys. It was pretty cool. And Nate, it's always fun to see you again. But can we just address the elephant in the room? In the fact that our good buddy Tyler is here.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I was getting there. Don't you worry.
But his beard is not.
The beardless wonder.
I told you guys last night when we were recording our super secret project. That's not really a secret project, but it might be. But it's not. But there's a possibility that it is. That I fashioned my beard hair into a loincloth.
That you went into battle with Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fashioned my beard hair into a loincloth for the event known as Presidential Thunderdome.
There we go.
Until The Rock entered, and then all shit.
Yep.
We are spoiling everything. This is future.
Giving away all the good
bits. Anyways, today joining us, as Brando alluded to, welcome back to the show once again. As you guys know and love him, he is the Savage One. He is the stepdad of the Journey into Comics Network. And for some reason, I feel like he's got a dial in his back that he just turns to make his hair recede back into his face. Like, he didn't shave it. He just turned this dial, and it just like
he ungrew it.
He ungrew it. Yep, ungrowing a beard. That's the name of the game. But how are you, Ty?
I'm doing good. Speaking of my hair, the last year and a half, I've been really self-conscious about the hair on my head, and I think that like my hair started to thin on my head for two reasons. One, stress. So, like, my hair was legitimately falling out. But, like, two, I started to grow hair on my face. And then that stole all capability that I had to grow hair on my head. So I thought, and this is like some Trumpian, like, backwoods science here. But maybe if I shave the hair off of my face, that some of the hair will come back on my head.
I like it. I will say there's 40% plausibility it will work. It's like an energy transfer, like
60% of the time, it works every time.
Absolutely. But it's crazy to say it because we are really genuinely, absolutely, without question, unequivocally on the precipice of Journey into Comics 300. Mm-hmm. We have taken part in some of that, although it is not yet complete at this moment. So I can't wait to see how that is all done. And you guys are going to have a blast with all the things we have planned. Today, however, we're just going to keep it brief and simple. We've got some comic news. We're going to dive into the two of the last three of the Kraven Last Hunt story arc books that we have to get through. Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to say, Brando, thank you for catching up to Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I didn't know that was actually going to happen, so it's cool that we actually will get you and your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. We always talked about covering that back in the day. I remember we were doing some other, the comic book club, like that we did, and we got halfway through Watchmen. We had some technical issues, and we never got the crew back to finish it. And the book, the people may not know this, but we were going to say, hey, the next comic book club, or the comic club is what we called it.
Yep.
The next comic club is going to be Kraven's Last Hunt. We never got to it. So it's really cool you guys finally got to it around episode 298 or 97 when you guys started.
I think 295. Yeah, we were whenever. You're probably more right on the time for us. But it was just like Tyler and I had been talking. We had just finished the Abrams story, mm-hmm. which is only 3 books at this point. And we are kind of, I think, really sinking our teeth into Spider-Man stories right now. Mm-hmm. And that is like an iconic one, obviously.
Sure.
Well,
absolutely.
And especially with the Abrams stuff, you and I, back when we started the X-Men stuff last year, really, we
Yeah.
started to talk about how excited we were for the Abrams Spider-Man story because obviously we're all big fans of J.J. Abrams and the fact that with all the collaborations and stuff and how the art style is a little bit different. We were really really excited to do that, and then with coronavirus and kind of what seems to be the trend in the industry the last couple years of here's this super cool thing we're doing. We can't finish the books on time, so you got to wait like 6 years to get all the issues of like a 5-issue, 6-issue comic run. Um, so we waited a really long time to do the Abrams Spider-Man, and finally when it's like, all right, they've got a day for issue 4, they've got a day for issue 5, and that'll be it. And then
They
those
have been
days
moved again.
those
Jesus.
days have come and passed without announcements of them being pushed back again. So I'm not super enthusiastic, or I'm not super
Hopeful, maybe, that we're going to
hopeful.
get to the end of this.
Yeah, just because like I spent when we recorded last weekend, I spent probably an hour after the show doing some work on my computer, kind of dicking around, and I had maybe 4 or 5 different articles pulled up that were different time frames on when we should expect issue 4 and issue 5 of that, the continuation of that story, and every one of them said different things, and they all basically said we really don't know when this is going to happen. So it's unfortunate, but that's the nitty gritty of it.
I mean, and I feel like if we're gonna do the Kraven's Last Hunt talk, I think we will save that to the end of the show because it is these 2 issues especially are like I think Ty and I talked leading up to. First issue is very good. 2 and 3 are definitely the exposition, the building of the story. There's not a lot going on, but then everything pops off in 4 and 5, and it's just like, once you open Pandora's box, you can't, Pandora won't go back in that box, as it were. So I'm really excited to talk about that. However, there are a couple topics that I want to just throw you guys' way, get some opinions and stuff. Did you guys hear about this thing that happened in Central Park
No.
with Christian Cooper?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I'm going to read this to you. Christian Cooper was one of the first openly gay employees in the Marvel Comics back in 1990s, right? He helped increase the LGBTQ representation in the company with his work on Alpha Flight, Darkhold, and many others. He was an assistant editor on the issue where North Star came out about his sexual orientation, which was a big deal in the 90s. He wrote many other stories. Anyways, he's also the guy who was in Central Park walking his dog, and a white lady, came up to him and told him to essentially get away because I'm going to call the cops on you, after he asked her to social distance from him because
Right.
she was not wearing a mask or she was not wearing it properly or whatever, and he was.
Mm-hmm.
So she tried to call the cops, and the whole thing got filmed from his camera. The minute she said cops, he put into camera mode and filmed the whole thing of her acting like he's attacking her and all this like crazy shit to essentially get him fucking killed. And he, was very peaceful, just did his thing. Officers got there. He showed him the footage. Everything de-escalated. That lady ends up getting fired and has been doxxed and, all the shit that happens in 2020 when you're an absolute asshole to people.
Right.
But it's just interesting because Christian Cooper is this guy who he had a storied history with Marvel already. And now in the time and the movement of Black Lives Matter, he has yet another important moment that, really kind of set things forward a little bit more about how, you have to be if you are an African-American male in this country, unfortunately. So like I said, I don't know if you guys had seen the video, seen the story or anything like that, but I thought it was worth bringing up on the show for sure.
Yeah.
I did hear the story, but I didn't know that that's who he was.
Yeah, same.
So that's interesting. And yeah, no, gotta be careful out there, man. You gotta watch your ass. Like, no, seriously, like this shit is nothing to fool around with. The thing is that, that gal, even though she was, berating and basically, being a bitch, she may not have intended for them to kill him, but that's what could have happened if the situation,
easily, especially where we are in today's society.
If the situation escalated, if they saw him as a threat, and I mean, which doesn't take much, with all the BS that's going on. So like, he could have been like they could have saw the leash and he's like he's gonna whip me with a leash, and then that would have enough to boom 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 like,
or throw him to the ground or whatever.
We need a medic, yeah, right, yeah, just no, like everything is so heightened right now, and I'm glad that it worked out in the other favor, where that did not happen, because just think about this, it was just a few years ago, and it kind of became a trope. Unfortunately, where, calling the cops because their people are barbecuing at the damn park when they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, white woman at blackbarbecue.com.
Acting, and they're basically saying like, leave us alone, and they're attacking back at her, and now she's playing the victim.
Yep.
No, not gonna fly.
It's very disgusting. I was gonna save this for this week's Journey into Wrestling, but it's pertinent here since we're on the conversation of Black Lives Matter. We'll future trip about The Rock later, but did you hear the thing Xavier Woods said?
I have not watched that yet.
Dude, I cried my eyes out just watching him talk about it, because it made me realize what is inherently wrong beyond what I had already known with our country. And it is that if your skin is brown at all, you have to do everything and prove you're doing it non-aggressively. And like the way he words it and the story it is very powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you get a chance, do check it out. But
I watched the clip from backstage with Mark Henry, CM Punk, and Booker T.
I didn't see that. I need to watch that.
And they talked about it because they showed footage from Mark Henry. He was filming at the Austin protest, and asked him about it. And they asked Punk, and I first saw the clip. It was just Punk's clip. I actually went back and saw the whole segment later on.
Sure.
And he did such a good job. Obviously, it's there we go. Just elbow the shit out of that microphone, Ty.
Sorry, I was distracted.
Ooh yeah.
Elbows, brother.
No, but he seriously when we're put in this situation where Renee asks CM Punk, so what's your thoughts on this? And he's a white dude, and he's like, you could tell in the very beginning, he's trying to be thoughtful with his words to say the right thing, because he means what he means, with his words. And he's like, I don't want to, F up and say it and have it not come, like have people misconstrue me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But he comes out and he's like, it's not my place to tell black people how they should feel and how they should react.
Right.
He goes, it's my place as a white person to use my privilege for the power of good and try to speak up in help of my black brothers and sisters. And what he would say to others is they need to shut up more and listen more. And then of course he's like, the dichotomy is that the only way to deal with intolerance is intolerance. Mm-hmm. And the fans of hate are being stoked at the highest levels in this country. And he's like, he turns it around. He goes, and how he relates it to him. He's like, not that any of this is about me, but it was the very first tattoo he ever saw was on his grandfather's arm, and it was numbers. And
that's powerful shit.
He got a little choked up when he said it. He goes, and he rode horseback towards Nazi Panzer tanks, and we have a president that says Nazis are very good people. Mm-hmm. And it was a good segment. It was a really good segment. And
I will definitely be checking it out.
And Booker T went on to say that he's like you see, he's like there needs to be more leadership in the country and less followers, because if he's equating it to what happened with George Floyd. He goes, there's that one officer leaning on his neck. There were three other officers there,
and they're doing nothing,
and they were following his lead.
Mm-hmm.
Where if they would have, if one would have said no, stop it, the others could have jumped on, and maybe they could have saved his life.
Yep. Because
You
as
know,
we've talked about is, as citizens, realistically, it's our responsibility to take care of each other. But if
Mhm.
any one of those people that were there witnessing that act would have intervened at all in any way, they would have been shot and killed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, and that's the unfortunate thing is that responsibility. Yes, as us on citizens, we can call it out, we can videotape, we can expose these people, but when we have a police force that's killing people, robbing them of their rights, of our civic rights that we are given by our Constitution, and you have your quote bad apples and you have quote good cops, but they don't stop the bad cops most times, or a lot of times, and that's where the issue needs to be. It's like we need to have the good ones stand up for what's right and defend our citizens against the bad. Definitely. If I see a cop doing that, standing up against another one of his brothers in arms and saying you are fucking up, I will applaud that person. Say you
For
yes,
sure.
absolutely. There was a clip that I saw. I didn't. They didn't capture the first part of it, but they captured the second part. There was this black woman on her knees with her hands up protesting, and this white dude comes up to her and kicks her from behind, and she falls forward. And this black woman cop went over to him and beat the fuck out of him.
Awesome.
Yelling at him, saying, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right.
And it's like, there it is, right there. There's that empowerment. There's that leadership that we need to have, because that's how we change it. That's how we change it.
Well, and there needs to be a demilitarization of the police force. There needs to be, I was talking to my dad the other day about it. In Canada, they go through 4 to 6 months of de-escalation training.
Yeah.
For every scenario.
8 hours.
8 hours.
8 hours for us.
No.
That's
not enough.
And also, it was during the Obama administration where they actually started to try to limit the militarization of our police force. And Donald Trump gets in and he undoes that because, of course, he tried to undo everything that his predecessor did,
right,
as a means of just discrediting because he didn't like him. So here we are. Like they have tear gas, which is not used. Like it's chemical warfare essentially. Like on wide scale military doesn't really use it. In fact, there's also been the comparison that in the military they go through further steps of de-escalation for life-threatening situations. It's a dude coming at them in a vehicle, they try other things to do before they take the kill shot.
Well, and I've pointed out over the last couple weeks that when you're in the military, you have very strict rules of engagement, which our police force has rules of engagement just the same. It is very cut and dry. When a soldier kills a civilian, when they violate the rules of engagement, they sit in Leavenworth prison for the rest of their life. When a police officer violates the rules of engagement, they get put on administrative leave and get to sit on their couch and get paid, and then they come back
and keep doing the same exact shit. There's no change in the behavior.
Glenn Wrightsell was not an African-American man, but he was on the side of the road fixing his daughter's car, and a young cop walked up and shot him in the face.
Yep.
And then while he was still breathing, made him crawl on his hands and knees on the side of the highway and then watched him bleed to death.
Whoa. That's fucked up.
That happened down here. That happened down here, Nate.
And it happened just south of Linden, just south of Lafayette.
The reason why that officer shot that man is because he had a gun on his hip because he's open carrying. And that's it. He was exercising his American right to have a firearm. He was on the ground, if I remember correctly.
He was leaning over, like he was underneath the hood of the car.
Yes.
And then the cop came up, was already drawn, said something to him. The guy Glenn came around the front of the car. He saw that he had a gun.
Fired.
And he alleges that Glenn tried to reach for the gun and he shot him in the face.
That guy is still on the force, by the way.
Yep, still patrolling.
What the fuck?
Yeah. No, that shit's awful. The other thing, I saw this just last night after we were done doing our top secret special stuff last night, that the White House wanted 10,000 American troops across the country to break up protests and so riots and whatnot. And that is unreal.
It's not going to happen.
No, but
Governors are not going to let it happen.
No.
The military is not going to let it happen. Did you see I don't think there was the General Mattis statement, which is very powerful and says a lot. But then there was I cannot remember the chief.
There were several others that came out.
Chief of staff or something that came out and said every branch of the military, we serve the people and the people are not the enemy, and we will not be taking action against the protest. That is their God-given right.
I was pretty furious when I heard that they opened rubber bullet fire and tear gassed peaceful protesters outside of the church across the street from the White House just so he can go and take a picture with a book that he's probably never read and basically pander to a voter base that he's just pandering. He doesn't care about
Too bad that move did this to his whole entire plan. Went up in smoke.
More and more similarities between Donald and Adolf, especially with the picture with the Bible in front of the church.
Dono Trump. Oh yeah, he is. I mean, come on, dude. This is a guy who openly admitted he admired some of Adolf Hitler's power and ability. That is insane. Yeah. You study Adolf Hitler as a point of, he is literally the real world's fucking Dr. Doom or Red Skull or whoever you want to put in that fucking he is the worst villain actualized. So to not, I just fuck Trump. Sorry.
Also, think about this. If this were modern day, or let's either take technology back or bring back forward, Facebook would allow Nazi propaganda on their website due to their terms of service.
Right.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it was, Tyler brought up the comparison between the president and Hitler. General Mattis kind of said the same thing in a roundabout way. And that was very interesting to me, where he said, in quote, in my lifetime, President Trump is the first president to actively not try to unite the people, but not even pretend, but actively try to divide the country.
Right.
Make efforts towards that. And then in the next paragraph made this statement saying, when the troops were about ready to storm Normandy, they were reminded that the Nazi goal, that their game plan is divide and conquer. And that our response to that is through unity, we are strong and we will beat them. That was interesting. That was a very interesting way to say exactly what you said without pretty much saying, yes, he's giving off shades of Hitler, because that would have been more scathing and it would have been throwing down. But you say it the other way and it sounds a little bit more professional, but still you're still getting the word across. And there were several other former military leaders that have come out and have criticized this presidency and its reaction to the protests. And
I think it's just kind of interesting because if you look at Germany as history repeats itself, you guys, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Germany in the 16s, right after World War I and whatnot, you had the slow rise of Hitler and his power. And eventually, I think it was in 32 or 33, he starts running for office and starts getting this kind of not really fame about him, but, celebrity, because he is a politician at that point. And then, like you said, divide and conquer, right?
Well, you got to remember, you got to remember, Nate, is that he became popular.
Yeah.
Because think about where Germany was economically after World War I. They were crippled. That put them into a recession, depression, possibly even. And of course, then the whole world went into economic depression. But the people were beaten down into such a state that they were looking for a leader to come forward and bring the German people back to prominence. And here's here's this guy, and he's very well spoken. I mean, obviously, you can go back and you can look at all these speeches, and we hear this. He sounds like a madman raving, but to them, he's like, this is a guy. He is maybe a little nuts, but he's speaking the truth. And what is he doing? He's placing the blame of their burden on outsiders, on immigrants, on Jewish people. And people were like, yeah, our problems, fix them. Yeah. And they were like, you know, you can look back and people can say like, oh no, we weren't with them. A lot of people were, because
and that's one of the biggest things. Especially, I'm really glad that you brought the military up. When you look at the war crimes that were committed during World War II, and the trials that were held for those war crimes, you know, in the beginning, everyone said, well, we were just following orders. Following orders is not a good answer, a good justification for committing atrocities.
Yeah.
Nope.
And the police, when they just stood by while George Floyd was asphyxiated by someone's knee, you know, they were just following orders essentially, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why all four of them are wearing orange jumpsuits right now. So, you know, at least there's going to be, you know, some semblance of hopeful justice. I don't know how the trial will turn out. Listen, I'll just say it now as a predictor. If those guys go to trial and get off, it will create the most extremes in this country as far as protests and whatnot, because there's video of him killing a man. End.
What I want you guys to also remember is that while Adolf Hitler had such a huge base of supporters and people like saying, yes, help us, save us, the difference between then and now is that we have more stability and freedom in this country. And I just sent you guys a picture, and that's just one picture. There's actually like other pictures, not the one that I actually saw. That was in Philadelphia yesterday. Just that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
And there was a crap ton of people. You know,
yeah, that looks like over like 10,000.
Speaking out, you know, letting their voices heard about Black Lives Matter, about injustice, and basically against what the version of America that this president is putting forward. And while, let's be real here, there's a very real chance that this president can still win a re-election this year. Mm-hmm. We still have, you know, he might have that military might open fire, but it won't be a similar situation to Nazi Germany. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to stand up. There's going to be a lot of people who would get hurt and die if that ever were to come to pass. I don't think it would. But
one of the good differences, I guess, between us and Nazi Germany is one of the first things that Nazi Germany did was disarm their citizens.
Yep.
They took their guns away.
Yeah.
So they couldn't fight back if they wanted to.
Exactly.
They're not going to do that here. They don't.
I'm going to say
more of
something.
us than there are of them.
Here's the only thing I'll say, and I come back to this when I talk to certain, not Tyler, I think you're a very reasonable person in how you consider the Second Amendment is a thoughtful, you're not an asshole about it, right? And I think that's important to note the difference. But there are people out there who are just, I got the right to bear guns and fuck you, you know, and I'm going to have my AR-15 on the street when I go to Starbucks. Like, you don't need that.
Right.
But like, what I always say is, have your AR-15, bro. How is that going to stop you from getting killed by a drone that they can send while your ass is asleep? If they want to take every person in this country out, they could do it in a fell swoop and we would have no clue. I mean,
but then they wouldn't have any taxes.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true. But I'm just saying, if they wanted to go to that extreme, I don't think they would, because the people will stand up. Ultimately, there's going to be someone who's supposedly, you know, flying one of these drones that goes, I'm not going to kill these people. Are you stupid? And then, you know, but what I kind of am getting to here is Nazi Germany had to be Nazi Germany to make Germany great again. Okay. Because it had to go through the worst period of transition. It had to weed out the evil, the actual evil that was inherited within, and get rid of that. And of course, it came through a terrible cost, 6 million Jews dying and all kinds of craziness. We obviously went through World War II, and then that caused other deaths to happen by proxy because of the Germans, you know? So all that being considered, I just don't want World War III to be what makes America great again. And I don't want other countries coming to our shore to get rid of our dictator who is fucking up our planet. because now it's big picture, and that's where we're kind of creeping towards.
Germany doesn't mess around either with
Nope.
Nazi depictions. I saw a video just recently, like within the last couple of weeks, and there was this one dude like they had police patrolling around because of because they were on protests over there too, and one guy did the salute, and that police smacked the fuck out of him. He smacked his hand down and basically said, "You're liable for arrest."
I saw that old dude who does the thing, and the guy fucking whaps him.
He smacked his arm down.
I loved that.
That is against the law. You are liable to a huge fine and arrest, and for doing that. And that is just really funny how they've taken such a strong stand against that kind of mindset. And here in this country, just a few years ago, we had KKK and neo-Nazis protesting in Ferguson, and well, I mean, there's good people.
Let's not forget about Virginia too.
Yeah, there's good people on both sides, right? Yeah.
I think I'm really glad that we brought up Nazi Germany, because we as America, our entire lives we've been told that you're American, you're the greatest. You've always been the greatest in industry, and you're the greatest. You've got the greatest workforce in history, and engineering and medicine, and we are number one in every facet. And our generation is the first to really step back and say, no, we are not. We are clearly not number one,
and probably haven't actually ever been.
Well,
it's a self-propagated lie,
right? But you look at Imperial Germany, World War One. World War One removed basically every empire in the world except Japan, the UK for the most part. But, Imperial Germany went away. They went in recession, depression. Their economy tanked. They had to pay the rest of the world millions of dollars, and they rebuilt. And Nazi Germany came out of that. And then they had to do it all over again. And Germany has rebuilt itself multiple times and has always come out on top. They're the wealthiest nation in Europe. They're one of the most powerful nations in Europe. And we really need to look at...
It's where you were born.
It's where I was born. We really need to look at, as a nation, we need to look at what Germany has done, the mistakes that they have made in the past, and do everything in our power not to repeat history. That is the purpose of learning from your mistakes. And, as an American, I can say there's one thing that we are definitely... in first place, we are number one in. It's ignoring the past and repeating mistakes.
Totally. I think that I want to bring this up because we're on the Nazi Germany thing. Brando, do you remember us having sent one of the Hoopston crew of our school on the foreign exchange program to Germany?
Shannon Beatty.
It was Shannon, correct. Now, I remember this. When she came back, her and Tony were dating. And do you know what Tony's one question to her was when she came back?
I don't remember.
What did you learn about Nazis? Like, what did they tell you? Because you're like in the thick of it. Like, what? And you know what her response was? Do you remember this at all?
Nope.
They didn't. They don't talk about it.
No.
It doesn't exist.
Nope.
It never happened. Don't bring it up. She got offended that he had said that. I was like, oh shit, they're gonna war right now, motherfuckers.
My stepmom's dad was a Nazi soldier, and he's still alive. And I've been fortunate enough to have a few conversations with him. And when I was a kid, that was one of the first. As a kid, I'm from the Saving Private Ryan generation.
Yeah.
So of course I love military movies. Wow, your dad was a Nazi, and her exact words were, "We don't talk about it. It never happened." Like you hit the nail right on the head. It does not exist.
Because they don't want to. They are actually ashamed of it.
Yes.
You know what?
As they should be.
And I equate this back to and the journey into whatever we are today, because this is awesome. I love this conversation we're having. But the real nail on the head, and I don't know if you guys saw this news yesterday with the U.S. Marine Corps coming out and banning Confederate flags on anything.
Yes.
Okay. The treatment of the Confederate flag should be the same as the Nazi flag. We don't celebrate fucking Nazis. Let's not celebrate the South, who was all racist and wanted to fucking keep the black man down. Let's not celebrate that. Let's not put on our trucks because of, sorry to use the word, heritage. It's not like that. You know, that is a sign that slaps people in the face, and it saddens me. It saddens me. And of course, coming from a different time, that bands like Leonard Skinner are attached to the Confederate flag. Great music.
Pantera.
I can't ever look at them as the same. Pantera, another
Now,
great example.
Also think about this: is that both of those bands have actively removed that image from their logos, from their stuff.
Absolutely.
They have renounced it since then. You know, and
yeah,
you know, good on them for that. Because you know, you said like you can't ever look at them the same. We also can't remember or you know can't forget to let people grow, let people realize their mistakes. You know, just yesterday, just last night on our super top secret project, you know, Tyler said, you know, I want to apologize for the way I acted and things that I said about certain things. And that is very important, because while intolerance can only be met with intolerance, we cannot forget that the people who are intolerant of certain things should be able to grow and become better people. And be able,
absolutely,
if they put their hand up and go, hey, I was wrong, and you guys have shown me, and things have shown me that I was wrong, and yeah, I moved past that. I'm with you guys. That should be a thing, and we should, you know, not forget that.
Man, you know what? That should be like a holiday, okay? And let me explain what I mean by that. One day a year, I don't care if it's a fucking stupid Facebook holiday or whatever you want to do. It should be like Confession Day. And you should be able to come out and say, like, I fucked up and did X, and it was a long time ago or whatever, but I've never cleared my conscience, and get no judgment back. Like, just nothing but like, hey, we support your growth and change, man. And of course, if you have an asshole on your friends list, you're going to find him and weed that fucker out. Hey, man, maybe you'll be growing and changing someday, but not right now. You're not going to, you know, squash my shine, you know, because I think we are all, you know, guilty of making mistakes. We are only people. We're only humans. On our first and only trip on this journey.
A lot of what I've seen here lately on social media has made me, you know, proud to be an American, really. You know, and that's not, especially the last couple of years, that's something that I haven't been able to say. The sad thing is there's as much that's making me ashamed to be an American, with
almost more than anything else.
And one of the things that I think that is good to cut toxic people from your life and people who won't acknowledge change and progress. There's a lot of people that are taking advantage of the situation right now to get attention and make what's happening about them. And shame on those people. Don't give them the time of the day. Don't give them the satisfaction of doing that. But there's enough people out there that are so adamantly fighting against what we agree is the right thing, just because they wanna be on a side, and it's really 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 sad, and it's frustrating because, you know, my first reaction, like a lot of people's, is, well, fuck them. They're gone from my friends list on social media. You know, I don't want to deal with it. This country is supposed to be a place of learning and tolerance, where we can entertain different sides of the same coin and look at things that are fundamentally different and accept other people's opinions and ideals. And you can't do that with this, because there are things that are inherently wrong, and if it's wrong, it's wrong. And if you say different, then I'm sorry, you got to go.
I mean, I think that, you know, you nail it when you say cut toxic people on your life. I think as I've gotten older, the tolerance for toxic people has just literally, there's a 0 level. If you show me you're toxic and that you're not willing to evolve from that, done. There's literally just a no bullshit cutoff. It's been family members. I don't care. You know, like, here's an example of toxic. I know, since I was a kid, and Brandon can probably attest to this. Sorry to put you on the spot, bro. My stepdad's a fucking asshole. Like, he's a piece of shit human. Okay. I'm just going to be really real. He is not a good dude. He is, I know more about him and in my life than obviously Brandon knows, but Brandon had him as a teacher. So he kind of experienced some of that, in a more controlled environment. But, he came to Christmas this year, the first Christmas that I have went to my mom's family's Christmas in 8 years, wearing a Trump Pence 2020 shirt, trying to stoke the flame.
Yeah, just trying to be an asshole.
Fuck you, dude. Have no time for it. Done. Just done. It is that simple. And I think, maybe 10 years down the road, he'll call me and say, hey, man, I'm sorry. That was a stupid fucking move. And I realized I was an asshole. Okay, good. Growth, change. Let's move on. I'm ready for that. That's what I wanted. But I don't know. We could just ramble on about this till all the fucking cows come home because of all the shit that's been going on. But I will say that growth and change is very important to something we're going to be talking about shortly on the show, because when we get to Kraven's Last Hunt, which is only a few more minutes away here, there is a lot of growth and change to discuss there. So I'm going to really quickly bring up another little brief article I want to throw your guys' way. This news dropped last, I think it was Monday. This would have been after the show went live, so we didn't have a chance to cover it. But Evan Peters is coming to the MCU, and his first seconds in the MCU is immediately going to WandaVision? What does that say? One of two things to me, and I want your guys' opinions, obviously. Either he's coming back as Quicksilver, and we're going to get a multiverse crossover thing, and they're going to start integrating the X-Men, which is fucking amazing. Or he is going to play one of the sons of Wanda and Vision, Wiccan or Speed, as a different alternate way to bring him into the MCU, pay homage to what he was, but give him a totally new character to portray that's not the same Quicksilver the X-Men did, because it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
His Quicksilver was fun. It just isn't the Quicksilver I think of when I think of the comics, They didn't really do a good job of capturing the comic essence of that character, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I did remember seeing that, and I wasn't sure like I didn't break it down as to like whether or not he was coming in as Quicksilver. They just did, because from what I saw, they didn't say. Like, it's still like we have to wait and see. And I have been wondering how they are going to integrate X-Men into the MCU, knowing that they're not in a huge hurry to do so. Due to the fact that, X-Men, there has been no shortage of X-Men universe things in film for the last 20 years. And so it's like, while, yes, they have it and they can do MCU version of X-Men, that has been out there. It has been very well publicized, and it has a lot of eyes on it. And you have to think that, the last few movies didn't do great numbers.
Considering the last movie came out a year ago yesterday.
Yeah.
And was the biggest box office flop in history.
Yeah, I was just reading through that article.
Yeah. So Marvel's not they're not hurting to bring back the X-Men. They will, and they'll do it, and we'll see how that
pick their spot. I know they will.
Absolutely. Because when you think about it, they have to be smart about it, because the X-Men is a property well loved, well known. When you think about Marvel, you think about Spider-Man. And for a lot of people, what's the next person you think of? Wolverine. And who was Wolverine for 20 years? Hugh Jackman.
Right.
And they're not going to bring back Hugh Jackman for it, because he's in his 50s. The dude's got to move on. Maybe a guest spot, that would be cool. Get that Deadpool thing in. But he's not going to be the Wolverine going forward, so you got to find the guy who's going to be your Wolverine, and somehow you've got to get out under that Hugh Jackman shadow, and that's a very difficult task to do. I don't care who you are. I don't care what actor you are. We've already gone through endless Batmans. We're not even at. There's a new Batman cast every 5 years, so it's like, nowadays it's like, okay, we'll see how he does. It's not that mindset anymore. When you have
not somebody coming in and taking over Tony Stark's role and just saying, okay, well, Robert Downey Jr. didn't matter.
Yes. Well, now this person has to be Tony Stark, and he played Tony Stark for 10 years. That's a different kind of story.
Right.
In general, that would be like if they were to do the new Star Wars movies and they had Luke Skywalker, but they didn't have Mark Hamill. So then you're like, all right, so this dude's playing Luke Skywalker, but it's not Mark Hamill. And then, so in your mind, you're already comparing him to the other actor.
Right.
Even though that's sometimes it's not even fair to do. You want to let them give their own shake, but we are fans, and we are constantly comparing things to things that we already know we like. And that makes us a little fickle, but it's also kind of why we're fans.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think it's because we live in the era of perfection. When things are good, they're great. And when they're not exactly good, they kind of get put into this category of like, well, okay, Suicide Squad was okay, but then you become mediocre. And in this era, to be a mediocre superhero movie, it's just not going to cut the cheese, man.
Well,
so
that's what makes me excited, because the thing is that we also live in an era where we get endless superhero movies now. It has become the modern Western. You know, back in the 60s, everything was a goddamn Western.
Right.
So now we have a lot of stories that are getting told. Some of them are great. Some of them are mediocre. Very few of them are actively bad. And
Fantastic Four.
yeah. So, like, you know, I try to remember that. Like, when I watch something, you know, it's like, okay, this was pretty good. Maybe it wasn't as good as it could have been, but it's pretty good. Let's not consider this a total failure just because it was good. And that's another thing to add on to that. While we are fickle, while we want certain things, we got to let stuff breathe and give it a chance, and let other people who have different visions than us, because if we could make movies, we would be doing it, you know? And so, like,
that's true.
One of the things that was voted as the most anticipated movie coming out in the next year, which was, this was hilarious, Venom 2 won out the poll against Spider-Man 3, against Fast and Furious, whatever, 17, against, you know, the next Wonder Woman. It was Venom 2, because people want to see where it's going. They want to see, you know, okay, they're bringing in Carnage. Rumor about Tom Holland. Okay, what are they doing with this story that's going to expand it, possibly cross it over? Maybe, we don't know.
Will we get J.K. Simmons as a J. Jonah Jameson?
Maybe,
considering he's got multiple contracted roles for
maybe he's in there, maybe he's not. But we're going to get to see what they're going to do, and that's what makes it exciting, because I want to see what they're going to do as well. You know, I want to see what Wonder Woman's going to do. I want to see what, you know, Black Widow would have been out by now. I want to see what they're going to do with that, because it's a story that's set before the end game, but it has it's going to do something to set up just for something down the line. It's got to, otherwise it's just another epilogue movie, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously Marvel isn't, you know, all about doing just epilogue after epilogue. This is supposed to be the start of Phase 4, Chapter 2 of their sagas. They're not going to do it short. Think Iron Man. They're going to set their foundation big and have lofty goals. I think we're going to get a lot of teases for characters that have and have not been introduced in the MCU that we've wanted, and you know, hear about names that maybe are 10 years down the road before we see them and whatnot. I was going somewhere, and I had a thought, and it's typical JIC fashion that, of course, I fucking lost it. So that just happens. To talk about Venom, you know, I think because it's got Spider-Man's name attached to it, it automatically has the like cream of the crop built in, you know. And you do have a good cast. And one thing I will say, and Tyler and I did essentially a 4-hour podcast on Podcastrophe 66 and 66.5 or whatever, that was talking and discussing the things I liked and didn't like about Venom. And I think even back then I said there's one thing they could easily do that would change my whole opinion of the first movie, and that's how they bring in a spider symbol to the Venom suit in the second movie, because that is the thing to me that drove me the most crazy about the movie. Like, even now thinking back, like, the movie itself, okay, it wasn't that bad. The plot was okay. There were some things I probably would have done different, sure. But I'm just pissed that it didn't really look quite like Venom. It was like 80% Venom. It was like Ven. They should have just called him Ven. Because, you know, he left the Om at home. So I'm hoping that, you know, Spider-Man gets touched by the fucking symbiote. The symbiote goes back to Eddie and brings a little Spidey with him. You know, that's my hope. I liked the fucking spider on my chest. It looked cool or whatever, you know, fucking puts it on there or whatnot. But if they don't do that and they just fucking shit the bed and never give him the spider, then I don't know if I'll ever really get behind the series like I want to. And what's Carnage going to look like? They could do anything, and Carnage will probably look awesome because he doesn't have a designated logo that makes Carnage Carnage. He is this fluid symbiote of insanity, you know?
And I'm excited to see what Woody Harrelson does with the overall character, other than that little clip that we got. Like, Woody Harrelson is a brilliant fucking actor. Even
Absolutely.
though when you watch him, he's like one of those actors that like kind of like Matthew McConaughey. He's so good, but he's always Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like you know what you're gonna get with Woody Harrelson. He's gonna look and sound like Woody Harrelson, but how is he gonna interpret this character? I want to know.
Matthew McConaughey is a guy that I would like to see in the MCU as somebody down the line. I think he would be fun. I think he would enjoy it. The fans I think would like it. My one big hope for Venom 2 is that the little clip that we got of Cletus Cassidy at the end of Venom 1 is that Woody Harrelson gets a little bit more involved in the character, and we don't see that. Because that was uncomfortable. To me, that was the worst part of the entire movie. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because of the character. Tom Hardy, I enjoyed the movie overall. That ending, the last minute of the movie could have been so much more well done than what we got. It was uncomfortable to watch for me.
Pretty easy to do it better. All you have to do is have the cell. You see the symbiote slip under the cell. You don't ever see Woody Harrelson's face. And then the first thing you see is from the back, the red goes over his head and he turns around and it's Carnage. You fucking see Carnage, Sure, it's cool to know Woody Harrelson's going to be your Carnage. I'm glad that you're setting that up and he's going to be a mostly CGI character, until he takes his fucking thing off like Cassidy used to do or whatever. But
the dialogue just didn't feel genuine for me.
No, but I don't think there even needed to be dialogue. I think there just needed to be a turn and the fucking the teeth and the fucking
maybe a scream.
him going at the camera, like almost like in a horror movie essence. I'm gonna just keep jolting my body until the cows come home, fucking but no, I'm excited for Venom 2. I agree. I just want to see how the world reacts to all the different superhero movies that are on pause right now that are going to come out the pipeline like a shit that's been waiting for years, just like, because we're going to get Wonder Woman 84. We're going to get Black Widow. We're going to get the Eternals. It's going to be chaos. As soon as the movie industry opens back up, we are going right into chaos mode. And that's not even considering all the Disney Plus shows.
That's if the movie industry ever opens back up. I read 3 or 4 articles yesterday, and for anyone that's listened to any podcast that I've been on, the movie industry is something that's obviously near and dear to my heart. I love the feeling of going to the movies. And, we took Ruby to the drive-in a couple weekends ago, and I love going to the drive-in, but it's just not the same. It's not the same. And we've got Goodrich Quality Theaters who's in limbo. We don't know what's happening with them. AMC every couple of days releases a statement saying, we don't know if we're going to survive the coronavirus because we don't have any money. And then now you've got Cinemark, who is like flexing on AMC and the rest of the movie industry, saying, well, we're pretty okay. We just we would like some movies, please. The whole industry is fucking batshit and crazy right now. And I don't know what it's going to come out as or looking like on the other end.
There's that rumor that Amazon was looking to purchase AMC.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that one.
That would be a crazy game changer.
That's a rumor, but also their name was tied to buying JCPenney and something else. So like it's like Amazon just I'm sure whenever there's a talk of somebody going bad, it's like Amazon's gonna be, hey, what if we bought them? Maybe they don't ever go through with that. Maybe they never even go over to the next stage. But somewhere down the line, somebody's like, wow, did you hear the company might be buying AMC? Wow, I'm gonna go leak that to somebody,
Right.
And it probably never will happen, but
I mean, let's think about it. Like, what? Here, let me R&D department here real quick.
Well, while he's doing that, I'll pull up a quick thought. If Disney Plus made the executive decision to put Black Widow on their service at $20 a family subscription, okay? You pay one time $20, it unlocks it to be on your Disney Plus immediately. It never hits theaters, whatever. They would make $1 billion if every subscriber did that. And of course they're not, but think about that number, and you didn't have to get people out of their home. It's a different experience. You're getting more people to possibly watch it. They have 50 million subscribers right now at $20 a head. That's $1 billion. There's opportunity there.
There is, but here's the issue, and this issue came around with Trolls World Tour. So Trolls got released digitally through Vudu and Amazon Prime and other things like that. The big stars of that movie were Justin Timberlake,
Anna
Kendrick. So when they sign on to do that movie, they get paid up front, but they only get a certain percentage, and they're counting on the other percentage of that money being made back at the box office.
Yep.
And so they are guaranteed that so much in their contract. Money coming in from digital buys doesn't count as that. So
really?
They are not getting that money. And they were not made aware that Universal was going to do this. So, like, according to the deal that they now I'm sure since then, since they kind of voiced their opinion, that they sat down with Universal and they probably worked something out, you know, to make sure that they got their money. But the thing is that you got, you know, big time stars like David Harbour, like Scarlett Johansson playing in Black Widow, and they you know, probably signed this contract to this movie, probably got paid, and then like, all right, when the movie comes out, it's going to do this, it's going to do this kind of money, and the studio's like, all right, so like once this happens, when we get these back, then you'll get the back end of that money. If it gets released via the Disney Plus, they will make a shitload of money, more money than they would have, but they're not contractually obligated to give that money to the stars.
That makes sense.
And they can write that off as a loss, and you know, maybe they would, you know, but again, it's like that's just a worry that since I read that article like about a month ago, because I remember we rented you know Trolls so Wyatt could watch it because he really wanted to, and
God, it was awful.
It was all right.
I am really glad that I looked at Skylar and I said we are not paying $20 for Amazon Prime to watch Trolls World Tour. Because we went to the drive-in and saw it, and it was fucking awful.
I really liked how Ozzy was the he was the rock and roll troll dad, and he was like just completely you couldn't tell what he was saying. He's like and like, hey, it's Ozzy. It was straight up Ozzy. No, there was some like the thing is I've seen the first Trolls a million times because Wyatt loved it.
One though.
Trolls 2 wasn't as good. But it was there. It was, you know, he loved it, so it doesn't matter what I think.
Right.
But
it wasn't made for you, Brando.
Exactly. It wasn't made for me. But it did have some cool music, and now Wyatt is obsessed with Crazy Train.
That's awesome.
So like he just runs around yelling, "All aboard!" Ha 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 ha.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
So the R&D department has come through. I've got the 3 biggest theater chains in America.
Sure.
Okay, we've got AMC Entertainment with 659 theaters, 8,218 total screens as of 2018. Cinemark Theaters with 525 theaters, total 4,566 screens. And then scroll down here quite a ways. Regal Cinemas, 558 theaters with 7,306 screens. So those are the big 3 as far as movie theater goes. To put it in perspective, Goodrich Quality Theaters has 30 total theaters, 281 screens.
Yeah, they're a lot smaller.
Yep, a lot smaller of a company. I didn't realize they were that small. I thought they had more theaters in Michigan.
No, if you go to the website, you'll see it's mostly Illinois, Michigan, Indiana area,
yeah,
and that's it.
I mean, the next, I'm not seeing anybody that has more than 100. Because I would imagine, like, on this list that I have, it shows the main company, how many theaters, how many screens they have, and then all of the theater chains that they have absorbed over the years. And I would imagine that every time one of these theater chains has got like 100 theaters, that's when Regal, Cinemark, AMC comes in and buys them out. This is strictly North America, United States. But so 2 of the 3 are struggling right now financially. Of the big 3 are struggling financially. One of the 3, and then Regal and Cinemark are like, yeah, we're okay, whatever. I don't know what's going to happen because I obviously don't have a Regal or Cinemark within driving distance of me realistically, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's
Yeah, all the
frustrating.
theaters here are AMC, so I don't know
Yep.
what happened. I think it'd be interesting though if Amazon did buy them out, because then Amazon could, like I was saying about Disney Plus, offer two different ways for their own way to make money. Like, oh yeah, fucking go home and watch the movie after you just watched it, and just buy it for $20. Like, go to the
Mhm.
theater, pay the money, watch it, and then you'll probably want to go home and watch it again, huh? You know, and then that might become the new trend. Like, oh, you just get your movie on demand immediately, and you can start, fan geeking out about it within, hours of its launch.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I
We'll
mean,
see.
we have, TV series now that drop the entire show in one day, and people binge it. So the access immediately to the media is, I think, what everybody wants most, especially in this time now where we have to find a way to be entertained, especially if you're stuck at home and you're not doing a whole lot of fucking anything.
Mhm.
You have to find something to do in your walls or outside your house, or you will fucking Jack Torrance everybody. All work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
Right.
So yeah, man, I'm not sure what's gonna happen with the different cinemas, honestly. This is uncharted territory, but I'm sure that everything will resolve. Speaking of resolve, are you guys ready to get into these second to last two books? It's hard to say.
Absolutely.
Of Craven's Last Hunt. This
Yes.
has been a long, arduous journey to get here. Books 2 and 3, lots of exposition. Books 4 and 5. What did you guys think? TY.
I'm like, yes, big two thumbs up for me. The last two issues we talked a lot about, like how if they would have combined issue 2, issue 3 into one book, like how much better it would have been. It would have been more complete and not so confusing. Um, the cover of issue 4 is probably one of my favorite covers that I've ever seen of any book
Resurrection.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty dope. And the way that the issue 4 opens up, it's like, you have no idea what is happening.
Until you figure out what angle they're playing at, and then it's really clever the way they pushed the story in that direction, I guess is how
Mhm.
to say that.
Yep. So yeah, two thumbs up for me for sure.
Fuck yeah, Brando, you played big catch up, so you've gotten all of the story in like a quick condensed time. Just off the top of your head, 4, what did you think?
Okay, so just a quick recap of what I thought leading up to 4
Sure, please
is
do.
I wasn't a fan
Okay.
until I got to 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
I kind
Okay.
of felt like the story was non-existent until you get there. Like you see where once you get to 4 and 5, you see the parts that they had planted. And I understand that this is a story that's kind of like more focused on building the character of Kraven. But personally, I find him kind of uninteresting. So
Okay.
I was struggling to kind of get behind him as a character. And of course, when you have all those issues without Spider-Man when he's taking a spot, it was like, all right, okay, here. Like, I found that kind of disinteresting until we get to, basically, issue 4 Resurrection, where then, like, all right, here we go. Now it actually starts building some plot, and you actually start getting more because I feel like what I was missing was like exposition, and why, where you had all those issues kind of leading up. Maybe as Tyler said, maybe issue 2 and 3 would have been better suited as a, shorten that up and make that one issue because it would have made it flow a little bit better. But no, issue 4 was awesome. I loved it starting with the whole white, and he's in that fetal position. I thought that was great. And then him going through this like near death. I also liked, him crawling out, but then you also like Future Trip. You get to see bits of that, of him crawling out, and like in the other book, when he's going into the sewer. Maybe Future Tripping a little too much there, but I liked that. I thought that was really cool because some of the imagery here of him coming out of like the spider, like he's being born. It's really
creepy.
It's pretty weird and creepy. But no, once he's out, the story really kind of starts picking up, and he starts trying to figure out what's going on. and you end up having that confrontation. I kind of feel like, and this is where like maybe sometimes these books in these multi-part stories might have little threads in them from other issues before this.
Yeah,
you
stuff
know?
that you don't quite get because it's a part of this is,
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 293, but 292 had its own story, 294 will have its own thing. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So like the whole thing with MJ, like going out and then going to dude's house, the editor of Daily Bugle,
Robertson, John Robertson. Yeah.
just for her to leave. And I'm like, and then she went back home. Like, the whole thing was just like, man, this is kind of just
Planned.
Feels like you're just going through the motion just to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas, you do get the payoff of him coming back, but you didn't do anything with that middle part. You did not really involve her in much other than her being worried. And then having that little one glimpse of Kraven as Spider-Man and her basically saying that's not him. Like, he's not acting right. And so, like, I just felt like narratively that was off. But as I said, when you get to 4, it instantly kicks into gear. And it really becomes
highest gear.
It does. And it becomes really interesting. And I liked little things that they did where they changed the bubble for Peter's speaking voice, and they come in and say, like, well, your vocal cords, you haven't been talking for 2 weeks. So then you could kind of, in your head, visualize how someone kind of maybe wouldn't have the most powerful. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing his best Bell Batman.
Maybe not that far gravelly, but like,
yeah.
I definitely heard it. And then, of course, you have him tracking him down. And okay, so here's something that I want to ask, and I don't know if either of you know this answer.
Sure.
Is this after Peter and the symbiote have separated and Peter just made a black suit?
I thought so.
Nope.
So this is the symbiote.
Correct. Because he doesn't lose it until 298, 299, leading into, funnily enough, Amazing Spider-Man 300. So that's when he officially loses the black suit. So, yeah, he's still very much a little bit symbiote in this moment.
Well, because there were things where I got a little confused, and granted, I'm reading this in a bubble, so like not absolutely following all the way through the series and to this point where like I know that, and I'm aware that the symbiote has its own mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of the early issues where he's talking to himself, he has 2 different versions of Peter that's talking. It's his narrative voice and his like deeper fear voice.
Right.
And at first I thought that was a symbiote, but it's not.
It's just how the symbiote is mind altering him. Because back in this era of Black Suit Spider-Man, the symbiote made him darker. It made him gruffer, but it didn't like have its own voice. It wasn't until it linked up with Eddie that it started to become its own entity, really. So you get more of Spider-Man he's more aggressive, he's faster, he's a lot stronger, noticeably. He's throwing full-size replicas of, giant elephants and shit, which is way beyond what he typically can handle. I mean, even when he's fighting Rhino, he's struggling to hold him back. So that's evident. And, one thing I really thought was interesting about this is that Parker's inner dialogue is going crazy that he's been in the ground for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he cannot escape. It's I mean, obviously, if you were fucking essentially dead for 2 weeks underground, you'd freak the fuck out too. But like, they do a really great job of like in almost every couple 2 weeks, he can't even. It was 2 weeks. Like, what the hell? Like, how did that happen? How could I let this happen? Book 4 had so many cool moments. One thing I thought was interesting was Peter coming to her, and he doesn't even, because like you said, he doesn't have any vocal cords, so he just essentially shows up, reveals it's actually me, gives MJ some love, and then leaves again back on his mission.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I will say I love how they subtly are setting up the next issue, which is called Thunder. In this issue,
and what issue is Thunder?
5.
No. Amazing
293?
294.
294, yes. Yes.
Ironic,
That
I'm
is
here
funny.
again for 294.
Ah, I see what you did there. You've snuck on again, 294 man.
Docking Bay 294.
Now, look. What I want to know is, so we have different Spider-Man series having this story told over the course of its run.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Me either.
So, like, say if I was just a subscriber or if I just had Amazing Spider-Man, I would only get part of this story, which they would make me go out and try to track down Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man.
And that was their marketing goal. See, you're uncovering what their whole plan was, because at that time, Spidey was hot to trot. You put him on anything and it was buying, even if the book wasn't necessarily great. And you had Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man not doing as well as they wanted it to. It was actually probably the C book of the different series. And then Web of Spider-Man came on very strong in the beginning and then kind of petered out for a small time.
It petered out.
14, 15 in those issues, it waxed into not being that great of a series. And then they ramped it back up for Kraven's Last Hunt, trying to get people reinvigorated. And I think Web of Spider-Man ends up going like 250 issues or something like that, or 200 issues, and then they called it. So it was all a game in trying to market to them. And realistically, that story could have just been an Amazing Spider-Man story, and it would have been phenomenal, and those books would have been highly sought after, and everybody would have wanted Kraven's Last Hunt. But it's a harder series to track now because you have to go through the different series to find all the parts.
Well, I'm pretty sure they offer it as a big collected, like, graphic novel.
Trade paperback. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, for the individual collector, such as myself, if I wanted to end up getting Kraven's Last Hunt, I now have to search out at least 4 books.
3D, yeah. Well, because it's the first part was Web of Spider-Man.
Yep.
And then it goes to Amazing, and then it goes to Spectacular.
Yep.
And so they basically did it in a 1, 2, 3 kind of motion. And I don't know, because I just kind of like, when I was reading through, and I saw the covers, I'm just like, wait. This is Amazing? I thought this was Spectacular. Wait, what? It really confused me for a second.
Yeah.
Especially just coming on, trying to participate in this episode with you guys, and and read these. And what I love, part 5, they just released the Tiger King Joe Exotic comic cover that is an homage
Timing.
to this issue. And I sent it to you guys last night. It was hilarious.
Brilliantly done, strangely timed that just came out. We're just talking about this issue. We're very on time and topical, obviously. The setup of book 4, Resurrection, is Peter getting out of the grave, ultimately finding his way to Kraven. But one thing I loved about the issue that is subtle and underlined is Kraven. He's coming. He's coming. Like, he's giddy with excitement. He knew the whole time Spider-Man was going to beat this. And then we learn in issue 5, what was the ultimate plan? What's the ultimate play? And why are we in this? So before we move to 5, thoughts on book 4 ultimately, and possibly a rating from you guys.
Book 5 or book 4 for me is, if we're gonna go on our 5-star scale, 4 out of 5 all day.
I think that's
I think it's
very
just
solid.
I think 4
rating.
is just solid.
Honestly, I thought issue 4 was the first one that was really solid.
Mm-hmm.
As we've already said, this is where the story actually kicks into gear and it starts bringing everything around. You start getting what you kind of expect from the interaction and that anticipation of the showdown. And so, I agreed all day 4.
Awesome. Well, as we get to the final panel of book 4, I forgot to mention, we do have Spider-Man and Kraven in the black suit, unmasked, Spider-Man on the ceiling, webbing down behind him, and Kraven's inner monologue. He's here.
One thing I do want to point out, I agree with a lot of the things that you've said about the series, Brandon, how it's really, really lackluster in individual parts and the dialogue and everything you said. The one thing that I would say shines above all else, though, is Kraven's dialogue. like how
His
like
inner
his
monologue.
inner monologue,
Yes. Yeah.
like how fucking maniacal this man is. Like especially, you know, a couple issues ago, issues ago, Nate and I were talking about like the episodes with the spider goo. Like this series, above all else, really goes to show how fucking wild Kraven is, and that's I think that's what I love about it more than the story itself. Really, up until issue 4 and 5.
Well, it's interesting because like I mentioned how disinterested I am in the overall character, but no, you're right. Those are what are making him more interesting and less like the other standard fare Spidey villains. And you're seeing that this guy is a lot smarter than what he's led on.
Kraven's fucking wild. He's wilding out.
Yeah, it's that Russian blood, man. I love how powerful Book 5 opens. Crack of thunder and a line that I fucking just feel with my soul. They said my mother was insane, you know, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I vibe that.
Yeah.
But before we officially get into thunder, oh, did I lose you guys?
Nope, you're still here.
No,
Nope.
you're still here, bud.
We're here. We're
Yeah.
good. Okay, just making sure. I had the internet is unstable thing. I was like, oh no, fucking worst timing. But before we officially get into Thunder here and talk about the inner workings of the book, just an early summation as we did the last time. I mean, for me at least, this book is this is how every TV show should look after their series. The second to last episode should be your banger, and then your final episode should be your ride off into the sunset and finish the story out nicely. And I think that's kind of what they're going to be doing. Not to spoil book 6, which we'll get to in Journey into Comics 300, I promise. But what did you guys think of book 5?
Brandon, you want to go first?
This was the issue that I've been waiting for, and while I said issue 4 was really good, this is the issue that really makes this series a must read. Like legitimately, like it you kind of look like I had a certain perception of the series, then going into 4, and then this issue changed that perception entirely. You know, it is the whole like villain kind of revealing his plan kind of thing, but it's done very well. And then you have, my gosh, that ending.
Not expected.
No.
Totally left field for sure.
God.
That's ballsy. That's ballsy and dark.
Yes. I love that the issue is called Thunder, and consistently throughout every multiple panels we get the Krakoom of Thunder.
Yep.
Often they actually like, oh, we're gonna call it Thunder, let's not just ignore that. They actually took the time out to make it a part of the story. The Thunder becomes, you feel it during these moments. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
You know, looking over it, I'm just kind of like going through it again, just refreshing myself. I love how a lot of it is the inner monologue of Kraven, and then we also get him speaking to Spider-Man. So we're just getting so much Kraven exposition. You're truly getting the reveal.
Well, exactly, and that's where, like, with my criticism of the first 3 issues, where there's like he has inner monologue, but you're kind of like still wondering why. You know, yeah. I bought this issue. Like, if this was back then, I bought this issue. You know, what is enticing me to keep reading this? And they took a gamble. They took a gamble with waiting until 4 and 5 really to make this like, wow, okay. So like maybe, you know, if you were just a guy who picked it up, well, this was a good issue, I need to go get the other ones. Or if you have been following along, you're like, maybe you're a diehard and you're like, yeah, it's all right. You know, I don't know. But if this book doesn't hit you in that way of holy shit, and it almost makes you want to now go back and reread the other stuff, knowing how this is going to wrap up here.
Yes. Yeah. So we get a couple things I want to mention, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, but the fence is electric. So Vermin is in this cage, getting the shit shocked out of him every time he touches it, but he keeps touching it. You know, we have the showdown with Kraven and Spidey. They are fighting and dueling it out, and really, Kraven's not fighting. He's just like, hey, man, there's no reason to fight. It's done. I beat you, and you actually have to live in knowing that I beat you. You can't take it back. You can't undo it. You were quote unquote dead for 2 weeks, motherfucker, and I took your place. I'm superior to you, which another villain of Spider-Man becomes superior to Spider-Man in the future. So I love that little tiny little reference there. But then we really get when I say Kraven's bigger plan is the whole time he's been fucking with Vermin in Spider-Man's suit, it was for this moment. So he could unleash Vermin and see if Spider-Man really has the gusto to do what it takes to put this bad guy away. After he so soundly and swiftly beat the Vermin into nothingness.
Yeah. It's almost like he's trying to teach him to be better.
In a way, yeah.
Well, because he even goes to that, here, let me help you up. Come on. You're going to go beat him. You just need a little pick-me-up right now.
Yep.
You know, because I did it. You saw he was captured. You saw I could do it.
Yeah.
Before, you couldn't beat this guy without Cap's help. You know.
And even still, you almost didn't do it.
Right. So now it's like, it's kind of like, as I said, it's kind of weird. But I liked it, how they kind of made Kraven this different kind of character than what I'd always, had seen before. Where, like, he's kind of encouraging Spider-Man, like, learn from your mistakes, pick yourself up, go do it, because it's possible. You can do it. I know. It's almost like he's kind of be his coach. Come on, buddy. Give him a little tap on the butt. And because there was that line that he says, like, Spider-Man's like, there's one final thing I see. This is inner monologue. Something I don't think I was capable of seeing till now. Every man has a spider, and perhaps I have been yours. And it's like, you're free to go. And Spidey's like, just like that, just go. After all you've done, you really think I'm going to? Like, a man like you won't let Vermin run loose and kill anybody else. He doesn't say kill, but that's what he means. Go and follow your conscience. Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely, as I said, these last two issues, it was great that I was able to come on with these, because if I was on before, I probably would have been not as excited if we were reading these like one issue a week or whatever. But like, I don't know about this.
Well, one thing that I did like about issue 5 is, throughout this issue, they bring back the imagery of the spider and the rat.
Yes.
And, towards the end of issue 5, you see the rat and the spider squaring up while Vermin and Spider-Man are fighting. The rat beats the spider and eats it, and without Kraven's intervention here,
It would have happened, yeah.
It would have happened. So, I thought that was kind of strange, but like when Vermin, what Brandon was just describing, like Kraven giving Spider-Man that helping hand, we see a panel with Vermin running away, and the rat with the spider goo dripping out of its mouth is kind of watching from his back. This might not be narratively the best comic story I've ever read, but I will say that this is the best comic best series that I've ever read with the most powerful imagery. Like, Kraven's Last Hunt does it.
Yeah, and I think that it solidifies what I had said a couple reads ago, TY, when I said this book is made for cinema. Like, give me this story as one of Tom Holland's, and I'm done, man. I don't need to see anything. Like, they did it. They gave me Mysterio, they gave me a good Vulture, and then I got a Kraven like that. I'm out. Like, not in a bad way. I would watch more willingly. I'm just saying you don't have to give me more, because this, as you said, with visuals, is the most impactful story I think I've ever read in Spider-Man.
Well, especially with the last 3 pages of the book. God damn. That last page, man, like, or the second to last page could not plan for this, could not, imagine this would be the end in my mind, like at all.
I think there's a moment right before this, though, in the panels leading to Parker swinging away, and then he goes down into the sewer. In that panel where Kraven says goodbye, a few panels ago, if you just look at the way they drew his eyes, he's somber. Watching Spidey go away, like really somber. And I love that the rain is on him, so it's like an extra emotional moment. And he waits until he's going into the sewer, and in his inner monologue, he doesn't say it aloud. He just acknowledges, I'll never see him again. That's it. I've made my peace. And I loved it. I was like, holy shit. I was not expecting them to go this route.
Yeah.
Well, and what I liked is that, as you said before, to add on what I was saying, where he's telling him to go and go and do your thing. You're not going to let him go. And, Parker's like, while you're merely going around destroying people's lives and using people, it's like, after all these years, you surely know that I'm a man of my word. And I give you my word, from this night forward, Kraven the Hunter will never hunt again. Because he was already resolute. He knew exactly what he was going to do.
And I think that that's what he is going to do now, retrospectively, that I've completed the series, and we'll talk about that on 300 more. But it almost, from the jump in the first issue, looking back on it, he knew that grave is not meant for Spider-Man. I mean, it was, but not really. He knew that if
because you have the imagery of the digging. It's for him. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. That's great storytelling, of course, and we're alluding to it here. But Kraven is looking at a picture of his family. He sets it down. There's the coffin that he had buried Parker in.
Can I read this dialogue?
Please do.
So it starts with, how calm I feel, how peaceful, as if something inside me, some knot, some tangle of fear and anger and so much more, has been finally untied. All these years, fleeing Russia, suffocating in America, finding release, finding honor in the jungle, all these years, and I've never known peace or calm or that elusive thing called happiness. But I feel as if I can know it now, that it's nearby, just outside, perhaps hidden in the patter of the rain, the drumbeat of the thunder. Peace, calm, happiness, and ending now, and then thunder cracks. Kraven puts a gun in his mouth.
Oof.
Thunder cracks again. They said my mother was insane. And then he pulls the trigger.
Oof. And again, the symmetry just gets me. They open the book with that line, and they just bring it right back around to this like very poignant torment. And I think as people, and this is one thing that maybe in comics doesn't get enough recognition, but this is one of those stories where, as people, I think we all see part of ourself in Kraven, because we've all had afflictions that have been personal demons for us or whatever. And that's what this is for him, is the personal demons have been shed away. He doesn't need to fight the spider anymore. He doesn't have to prove he's the greatest. He has accomplished the pinnacle of everything that his being will be. And in some sort of almost beautiful Japanese poetry, he ends the story on his terms and no one else's. And I think that is why I would say, without question, like this, if there's the highest level of 5, like if we could almost go beyond 5 stars, this will get that for me, because it gave, like I said, you put this in a movie and you're going to have people crying for weeks about Kraven, and it's going to change the whole paradigm.
Well, okay, so if they did that, they like a Tom Holland movie with this, think about the difference in which Mysterio did everything to tear Parker down.
Yes.
And then with Kraven, you would have, if he's trying to push him to be better, like in a villainous kind of way.
Sure.
He's trying to do the opposite of what Mysterio had done.
One thing I really appreciated about the ending of Kraven's story, because obviously this isn't the end of the story. This is just the end of Kraven's story. We see at the beginning of the book, a lot of Kraven's inner monologue is talking about his mother, talking about his father, talking about their exodus from Russia and how awful of a childhood he had. And at the beginning of the story, I was not necessarily confused, but I didn't really see at that time how this was relevant to the story that's being told here narratively, because we all understand that Kraven is insane for one reason or the other. You know, this one obviously goes farther and more extreme than most of the Kraven stuff that we're given, I guess, does. But you know, the way that last couple panels with that inner monologue and with the picture, and you know how all of that how it all shakes out in the end. You know, the last image that we see is an image of Kraven as a child, and basically, in my mind, Kraven is who Kraven is because he was robbed of his childhood based on his inner monologue at the beginning of the story. And
He had to
this is
grow up way too fast.
this is Kraven explaining, you know, this is basically Kraven's last will and testament of, I'm sorry for everything that I've done. I did it because of X, Y, and Z, and now, you know,
I've
now
accepted
now
my
I can be at
demise.
peace. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, it was I loved this book. I
Me
was
too.
blown away.
Absolutely.
It got there. And not in a hurry either. The way they built book 5 was a beautiful slow build. You actually, like you said, got nice character development. Kraven sitting there. He's trying to villainously mentor Parker in a way of like saying like, you didn't, like, I won this fight. We had this battle, but you're going to win the war, kid, because you actually survived what I did to you, which was my worst. And I could have killed you.
Mm-hmm.
I could have ended this if I wanted to, and I didn't, because you're better. And the world needs that. And in some weird fucked up way, Kraven becomes the hero of this story, even though he's not the hero at all.
Like this demented mentor that he's trying to, like, you know, pass that on, or like, you know, be what I couldn't, you know, be what the world wouldn't allow me to be, or whatever.
Right.
You know, I liked it a lot. And as I said, as much as narratively that the story wasn't doing it for me until we got to these issues, this book did so much to bring this story up, and is quintessentially what I would say, like, this is what makes comic books great. Great visual storytelling. And as Ty
It does
said,
get a little wordy. That's my only complaint.
it gets a little wordy in this one, but I feel like it needs it because of how lackluster that part is in the beginning part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 100%. Honestly, Brando, do you know what this book gave me weird, hard vibes of, without even being anything like it? But I just, with the way they had to shove so much dialogue in while also telling such a visual story, hardcore Watchmen vibes. I mean,
A little bit with the inner
Just like-
monologue.
Sure.
oh man, there's, I mean, and I think that's a couple of years before Watchmen, actually, because Watchmen was like, what, 88 or 89, and this is like 83 and 84, I do believe, or 84 and 85, somewhere in that
84,
timeline.
85, I think.
Yeah, so this is a couple years before Watchmen. Maybe you know, Alan Moore and them, right? It's Alan Moore that did Watchmen. Am I crazy? I don't have it in front of me, so yeah.
Watchmen came out in 86.
Okay, so maybe not necessarily influenced by Kraven's Last Hunt, but could have been just a little bit. I don't know. I don't know where Alan Moore drew his inspiration from, and I don't want to assume, but I just love that there's some comparison there, considering it was the last on network official comic club we did.
Yeah.
And now we've brought it back sort of in a different way, full circle, because instead of it being one episode, all the books, which was sometimes really hard to do, and this series would have been that.
Yeah.
It would have been slow, fast. We can't stop talking. Oh shit.
Oh, I
You
know.
know, so-
Like it really would have been like, so what'd you think of issue 1? What, 2? 3. That should have been the other one. 4. Okay, here we go. Now the podcast can start.
Yeah,
Kraven's
now we're
last-
here.
Craven's Last Hunt was actually 87.
Oh,
Wow. Okay, so flip flop it. Watchmen could have influenced Kraven's. I like it. I like it a lot. I do.
Yeah, issue 3 came out October 10th of 1987.
Wow.
So I'm trying to get issue 1 here. I'm struggling.
I would say September or August of 87. It would probably be concurrent.
So-
October 1st of 1987 was issue 1.
Wow.
So when you think about it, you know, if Watchmen came out in September of '86, that was like a year-long, it was like a 12-issue arc. So as soon as that was ending up, you had Kraven come right after that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Awesome. I fucking love it. So, Brando, are you on board with the 5-star?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I absolutely agree. As I said, like as much as I could kind of say that the first few issues didn't do much for me, this issue turned it all around, and through visual storytelling and great inner monologue, like it told a great story, and it's what makes comic books fun to read.
And I will say there's one interesting thing to mention about book 5 that got a 5 stars and book 4 that got a 4 stars. We didn't plan that, I promise. But book 5, interestingly enough, it wouldn't be as good. And I don't want to take away from the book at all. But if, as a comic reader, naive me back in the day just picked up 294, funnily enough, and started reading it, it's good. It's a great story. It's kind of fast because it's like, boom, there's Spider-Man. Boom, now Kraven killed himself. Oh, shit, the end. But the other parts of this make 5 so, it's the heart. Book 5 is literally the heart of the story. It's what the whole, like when somebody was drunk or high in Marvel and they were thinking about like how we're going to end Kraven's story and maybe we should kill off this major villain. What are we going to do? They started with that decision and spidered backwards, I think.
Sure.
I agree.
Because like, oh, what more beautiful way than Kraven essentially doing a modern seppuku on himself and going out on his terms, as I said before. So
Well, I think too, you know, overall as a story, now that I've finished issue 6, like obviously I'm not going to get into issue 6, but I feel like you could have ended the series with book 5 and it been just the same, you know, like almost more impactful, more everything that happens in book 5 resonate more if that was the ending, you know, not knowing what happens after that. So
yeah, I need to actually go to 295 in the Amazing Spider-Man run and see if they at all talk about or discuss like the suicide of Kraven essentially, because I feel like that could be a very cool other story arc. Of course, like you said, they take a lot of that and put it in book 6. We'll get there on 300 soon, but man, I'm jazzed. This has been one of my favorite reads we've ever done, and to now be able to share it with both Brando and Tyler, the longest reigning co-hosts in the history of the show, on 2 different spectrums of that. Man, awesome. I'm jazzed, you guys. Is there anything else we want to touch on before we get out of here?
I don't have anything.
That's about it, my friend.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the show. As always, you folks can check out Journey into Comics at journeyintocomics.com. Get us on the Journey into Comics network at journeyintocomics.com and on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, which is no longer a thing, Spotify, CastBox, TuneIn, and many others. Just search Journey into Comics network. Did we ever find out we are on iHeartRadio? I don't think so yet.
I looked. It's not there yet.
Yeah, I was going to say I looked yesterday and I couldn't find it.
You bastards! I did that the day that Brando and I said it on OGs that we were probably on iHeartRadio because of the little, and we still aren't submitted. I submitted it, but we still haven't been accepted. Fuckers. Oh well. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of Journey into Comics 299. I've been Nate.
I've been TY.
And I've been Brando.
And as always, pop your caps back and fill your brains with shit. We'll see you guys on 300. Later.
Later.